What is up, friends? Thank you so much for coming in. We got some people trickling in here. So excited to have y'all coming into the show tonight. We're super excited to get this going. Y'all, this is episode 8 of Diner Talks with James. And I'm James, so I am pumped to be here with you all. As always, let me know where you're coming in from. Let me know what's going on in your world as far as, are you in your living room? Are you on your couch? What's going on? Are you at an outdoor restaurant? Can you do that at this point in time in your life? I don't know. And also, if you could do me a favor, as always, if you can hear me okay, do me a favor and just hit that like button or hit that heart button, whatever it is that you see, that thumbs up button if you're hearing us from YouTube. But either way, just let me know that the audio sounds okay, because otherwise this is awkward and it's just me talking to myself for a while. So that's pretty cool. Shout out Brittany out here cooking dinner. I see you. What are you cooking tonight, Brittany? Let me know. Let me know. Scott, thanks again for calling from your couch. I appreciate you, brother. Glad you're out here being cozy. So, my friends, I'm super excited to get going. Thank you so much for coming in to Diner Talks with James. My guest tonight is the one, the incomparable Rachel Rosenthal, a.k.a. Ray Rowe. You'll hear me calling her that a bunch. As a matter of fact, some days I forget that her name is Rachel. But she is a great friend of mine. We have been friends for quite some time. We'll tell you a little bit about backstory when we bring her on. But first, my friends, we got a tradition on the show. We start out by doing a top three. Let's get into that right now, my friends. This week's top three. First off, last week I told you the top 3 books that I will now read. I am excited to say that 2 of them are on their way to me. The other one is sold out nationally. You literally cannot find a copy of White Fragility anywhere right now, so I will get to that one. That's fine. The other 2 books are on their way to me, and I'm super excited to get those reading. I got the shipping notification. They're coming in this week, and you better damn believe I bought them from a Black-owned bookstore because that's an area of my life that I'm excited to be better in. Those are 3 books I wanted to read last week. These are 3 documentaries/movies that I really want to see, and they are on my list. Here we go. First off, When They See Us. If you've seen When They See Us, let me know what you thought about it. If you've seen any of these documentaries or another documentary that maybe I didn't even list, I would love for you to tell me about it because I'd love to add it to my list and my quest of being better. So, first off, When They See Us. Next one that I'm going to see is I Am Not Your Negro. This is a powerful continuation from James Baldwin and some of the work that he did from his autobiography, and it's turned into a film, and I'm really excited about reading that. Not reading that, I'm really excited about watching that film as well, about some of the incredible things and disappointing and disheartening things that man saw. And last but not least, the top one that I'm going to see, the top documentary that I'm going to see is The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson. Marsha P. Johnson, of course, legendary LGBTQ advocate. It was there at Stonewall, and I'm really excited to watch this one. I think it's going to be absolutely powerful. I'm curious what else you all have seen. Feel free to make sure that you check it out. So make sure you do that. Next, I've also been really appreciative of some of my great friends that have been posting some really beautiful stuff lately. And so these are 3 of my top 3 follows that I do on Instagram. They probably are also, I know some of them are definitely available on Facebook as well. Some of them also have YouTube pages, so feel free to check them out and find them. But yes, thank you, Brittany. I appreciate you reminding me. 13th, Tina and I just watched that. I'm going to talk about it in just a minute, actually. It was incredibly powerful. If you have not seen 13th, I would highly recommend it. Here's another great one, Waiting for Superman and The Lottery. Great documentaries to check out. I appreciate us. Thank you so much for those recommendations, Martha. I really appreciate you. So, all right. So the top 3 people that I have been following, but now really appreciate what they've been posting and the power of what they've been posting as of late. So first off, let me actually throw them up here so that you can remember them, take a photo of this or whatnot. First off, Hip Hop Social Worker. This man's been posting some incredible stuff just around, or obviously around the topic of social work, mental health, and how that's all wrapped up into the world that we live in right now. Definitely check that out. Next, Trill Trill or Not Trill, an exceptional education company that is combining pop culture and using pop culture to teach leadership, to teach life skills, to teach all of that kind of stuff. And so they're really doing some really moving work. As a matter of fact, earlier today, they interviewed the student body president from the University of Minnesota that helped make sure that the University of Minnesota was going to end their contract or a part of their contract with the Minnesota Police Department. So they're just doing some really awesome stuff. And last but not least, is decolonizing therapy. Decolonizing therapy is run by Dr. Jennifer Mullen, a former coworker of mine, and she just posts some incredible stuff that makes me think a lot. It's really powerful. It's very uplifting, and it's really beautiful stuff. I recommend giving all three of those accounts a follow. My friends, to lighten it up just a little bit, my guest coming on is Rachel Rosenthal. Rachel Rosenthal is one of the biggest bagel aficionados I know in the world. So I was asked by one of the fans, because again, remember, if you ever want to contribute to the top three, I welcome that. Please feel free to shout it out on my Facebook page, and I'd love to add you in and your ideas to the next episode. But someone asked, my boy Scott asked, what are your top 3 favorite bagels? First off, I'm a New Yorker. So what that means is A, nowhere else makes bagels. I'm sorry, Montreal. It's not happening. I'm sorry, Brugger's. It's not happening. Okay? I'm just saying New York bagels are the move. So my top 3 favorite bagel flavors. First off, French toast. Not every place makes it, but when they do make it, it's slamming. French toast, and just sometimes with just a little bit of butter, melted, or sometimes plain cream cheese. Next, an egg bagel. Egg bagel with strawberry cream cheese is outrageous. Last but not least, my favorite bagel combination is a classic, an everything bagel toasted with plain cream cheese. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, folks. Those are tonight's top three. If you want to contribute to next week's, please make sure you jump onto my Facebook page and throw some suggestions in. All right, let's jump into this episode. My guest tonight is an incredible woman, an incredible human, a fellow improviser. She and I are on the team North Coast together. That means we create freestyle rap hip hoperas that we make up on the spot every single week. But more than that, she is a website developer. She is an educator, and she is done some really badass things in her life. And I'm super excited for you to meet her, because there's some things that I have learned from her that I'm excited to hopefully have you learn from her as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, bring it to the stage right now. Give me a slow clap for Rachel Rosenthal.
Oh my gosh. The answer is onion bagel toasted with scallion cream cheese and lox.
Wow. Onion bagel toasted with scallion, because when in doubt, more onions.
Yeah, I love it. Give it to me.
Yeah, and then have somebody do a drive-by with a mint gun afterwards, because there's not enough gum in the world after that.
No, you got to brush your teeth for days, but it's worth it.
But Ray-Ro, I'm sorry to admit this, as a New Yorker, you're from Connecticut, so close enough. You get points. I can't get down with lox.
Holy shit.
Go ahead.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know if we could swear on diner talks.
no
but this is
cursing,
just a diner that we could. No one in the diner cares. Really? That is like blowing me away. You are such a food guy and a Long Islander and a New Yorker. I feel like I respect you less now. Mm-hmm. Wow, okay. No, I'm just kidding. I actually totally understand that. I think it is like a strange food for people to get on board with right away. Mm-hmm. But yeah. Oh, Scott agrees?
Scott agrees.
Oh, God. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm also, you know what? You're missing one thing with the New York bagel, which is that you're not Jewish. And maybe if you were Jewish, like I am, that would be in your gene pool. You know, you would just...
Maybe that would be a thing for sure. I want to comment really quick. Scott, you said the audio has reverb. Are you hearing that as well, Rachel?
I am not.
You're not? Okay. Can somebody else let me know? Does the audio still have, does reverb? If so, we can try to do a quick edit and let me know if the audio sounds a little bit off on your end.
Yeah.
But see, we got some other people that do love lox, though.
Shout outs.
Yeah, for sure. Got it. Let me know if you're hearing that reverb, please. For short, you hear it too?
Oh no.
I think it's only on James' side. Hang on 1 second.
I'll entertain us in the meantime.
This is a live show.
Guys, my audio setup is perfect. Oh, I hear it now that you switched it up. Oh, look at that. You got to arrange it around the beard.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Does this sound better?
Keep talking.
I don't know. I think it might still be going because I'm hearing a little bit on my end. I wonder if it is annoying. And I don't know how to fix that.
I don't know. This is the world. This diner is just full of reverb.
This is such an echoey diner that we're in right now. Okay, I got one more fix. It's going to unfortunately deplete my audio quality, but we are going.
Do. Oh, I see John Robolata's blaming me. It says it just happened when I joined. You know what, Joe Ro? I don't appreciate this. Robo, I can't hear you at all now, by the way.
How about now? How do you hear me? There we go. How does it sound? Audio good, better? There we go. How does it sound? Audio good, better? It actually sounds worse.
We'll find out in 10 seconds.
I think it may actually sound worse. James, you have no audio. Thank you. It should have come back now.
That was a few seconds. Yeah.
Friends,
10 second delay.
Patience with me. You know, you use the same thing every week, and it doesn't even matter.
It's probably me.
That's not true. Who knows? So let's figure it out. Joe DiMaggio Light, thank you. Today I consider myself to be the luckiest man on the face of the earth. So let's jump in. If it's terrible, my friends, I apologize. We're going to keep plowing in because we got a really awesome show with Rachel. Rachel, thank you so much for being here. We met 6 years ago, 8 years ago?
10 years ago.
10 years ago?
Yeah. Well, it'll be 10 years this fall, so almost 9.5. Yeah.
Because that's when you moved. That's when you moved from Boston to New York City, and we met because we got to do an improv show together. Let me get Adam's comment over there because I don't want to even look at locks anymore, let alone try them.
Yeah, can you believe that was almost 10 years ago?
I can't believe it. So we met at an improv show that we got to do together, which is super fun. And then afterwards, I told you about North Coast, this hip hop improv team that I started in New York. And you said, oh, that's funny. I only rap when I'm drunk. What happened then, Ray-Ro?
Then we went to the bar across the street. I had a couple drinks and I started rapping and I got myself an invitation to North Coast rehearsal.
Exactly.
That's how it's done.
I love it because here's the thing is that you had that classic drunk confidence, right? And that idea that like, it's like people who's like, I only do karaoke when I'm drunk. I only dance when I'm drunk. I only whatever when I'm drunk. We have these little barriers that we put in our way that we're like, well, I can't do blank unless blank happens. When maybe in fact we can.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a shield. And, you know, since I joined North Coast 10 years ago, I actually have had a reminder from a lot of my friends growing up that I actually used to freestyle all the time growing up. And I'd kind of like downplayed it, I think, because I was like, well, that was just nothing. That was nothing. But yeah, one of my high school friends reminded me, he's like, we used to freestyle, like compete against each other, like in the parking lot. And I'm like, that's right, we did. Like, so I don't know. But yeah.
Used to go hard in the parking lot.
But the funny thing is now, obviously, we teach hip hop improv and I teach freestyling all the time. And the number one thing I say is like, it's all about confidence. And I'm my own example, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I feel like hip hop is 90% energy and 10% rhyme. Like it truly is the confidence to just get up there and do it. And that the confidence is what we pay for. And when we buy audio or CDs, or when we used to buy CDs, and things like that. But we pay for that confidence. It's what we want, that swagger, and the storytelling aspect.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like yesterday, North Coast was talking about all of these hip hop artists that kind of, we were just talking about like pioneers of hip hop and who inspired us and stuff. And I just kind of started going back and remembering again, like, oh yeah, like I've been listening to hip hop since I was like 11 years old. And, you know, just kind of bringing back all these memories. And anyway, yeah. It's just funny.
Who was your first hip hop artist that you got into? Do you remember?
I mean, so I am 41. I know, everybody, it's crazy. I look so young.
But actually.
And so like when I was in elementary school, I was listening to, like, we were just talking about this, like Another Bad Creation. They were this like hip hop group of children. They were 11 years old. I think Dr. Dre maybe like helped put them together. I can't remember.
Sure.
And then, of course, because Dre was involved in everything. But I was listening to a lot of like Salt and Peppa, obviously. I will say my first CD I ever owned was MC Hammer, Too Legit to Quit, the single. Yeah.
I can do that on a rolly chair. I can't do it in person.
So yeah, kind of funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, it's interesting because North Coast, it started, it'll be 12 years soon ago, and North Coast was founded by a white person. Hi. And I I started it because there was no hip hop improv in the birthplace of hip hop in New York City. And I felt like that was a really cool way to combine two beautiful art forms. I had seen it done in Chicago, but I didn't understand why there wasn't happening in New York. But one thing is that in starting it, I was definitely practicing living in cultural appropriation, right? Like literally was just like, nope, we're going to take this art form, thanks, and we're going to do it this way. And that is something that from the jump of North Coast start, from when we started this team, it was very important that hip hop wasn't just a gimmick. It wasn't just something that we were going to do and be like, look, we're going to rap now. And then I found a cat. And then I found a bench and sat.
Yeah.
And then I got a bat. Right?
We always honored it as fans and as a genre, and it was never used as a comedic game. It wasn't like a short form game like we're going to rap tap tabbity tap. And I think I just did an interview recently with Neil Curran in Dublin, Ireland, and he was asking me all about North Coast. And he was saying, like, how you guys he described us as like, you guys seem to really know who you are. Like, you know who you are when you hit the stage. It's very like gelled. And I attribute that to you, and us kind of knowing early on, like, we're not ever using it as a gimmick. We all consider ourselves fans and freestylers and comedians. And we're just combining all of the things that we love and that we're good at.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Obviously, I'm very biased and also protective, and also hyper conscious, because it is my baby, and it is hard to hear criticism. But a lot of the criticism that we hear from time to time is valid, and that is why we have always made sure to have a diverse cast, and in every sense of the word, and so. But we don't always nail it, and that's why I think it's been interesting with everything that's going on since the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and this amazing revolution that we're in right now. What an exciting time of history to be a part of, that took us quite a bit too long to get to, but still, as individuals who practice an art that was developed by Black people in this country, it's been fascinating, the conversations that we've kind of been having behind the scenes as North Coast as well, of what does it mean to show up as white people and do this? And so how has that felt for you, Ray-Ro? You know, you've been posting some stuff online, and I know that you are a conscious individual, and so I'm just be curious, how has this time been for you? And if you want to wrap in North Coast into that, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think I'm similar to you. I mean, I've been very conscious for a long time about the fact that I'm a white person rapping, and it's a art form founded by Black people, and just kind of like how do I reconcile that and like honor the foundation that it was built on and all this kind of stuff. I feel like I actually was just thinking today that like what's going on in the country right now, which obviously, as crazy as it is just really amazing and incredible to be a part of. I was thinking that like our generation has been around for like some of the most prominent, like social justice in general, just like, I don't want to say like, it's everything is coming back, right? It's not like any of these concepts are new, but I feel like our generation, the past few years, with like the Me Too movement for women, with the trans movement, and really supporting like transgender people, and then and non-binary people, and then now with like trying to finally be anti-racism, ending. I just feel like we are part of like an incredibly amazing time to be alive. Like I feel like they're going to look back on this time like they look back on the 70s or whatever else. I don't know. I just think it's like a really interesting time to be a part of all of this,
Yeah, for sure. And that's only with us continuing to do the work.
Yeah.
We have outlasted previous episodes of police brutality and murders against Black people in this country a little bit longer here, right? Like I feel like those were like 3-day hashtag binges, right?
Totally.
And as disappointing as that is, this one does feel a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it has also legs.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I think one of the main reasons is because I think ultimately because we're in quarantine, it's almost like people have a little bit more time to think about it, a little bit more time to not ignore it, right? You're not in your routines and all these places that you're going. Like, no, you're kind of always on social media. You're kind of also like your TV is on, the news is playing. And so you can't ignore it. And that is so important for white people who have the ability to ignore things that make them uncomfortable.
It's also, I totally agree with that. And also it's everything. We have a racist president and it's an election year. I mean, it's just like, it's so many things all just happening right now,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well,
I think the thing that,
Yes.
sorry, the one thing that's like, I think I've been learning a lot lately. I mean, I think we're on an education journey, and none of us are fully at the destination, right? Like we're all learning how to participate in this conversation in a way that is like positive and meaningful and important and all this stuff. And I think the thing that like resonated with me the most is just as silly as it sounds, maybe because I should know this already, is the idea of being anti-racist, obviously. And I think for me, it really resonated because I've been a pretty outspoken feminist person, and I've written a lot about being like anti-misogynistic. And obviously, it's the same idea. It's calling out things that are absolutely wrong when you see them. Hi, Stacey. And not just being casually, well, I'm on the right team, right? But in fact, like calling out things when they're wrong. And so I think that's something that's changing right now, and that everyone's really trying to like make a difference and further like anti-racism,
Yes. Yeah. It's the next step.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I love the way you put that, Ray-Ro. And also that was a perfect segue because you are indeed a badass woman who has carved her own lane. And it's super cool to see. You left a Fortune 500 company, the company formerly known as Thomson Reuters, and you left that cushy job, which is when you moved to New York. When you moved to New York again 10 years ago, that job was great because it helped you make that transition. But you didn't move to New York so that you could stay in that job because you were just able to transfer.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to hear a little bit of what was the process like for you, especially like conversations that you had with yourself around, you know what, I am going to leave this paycheck. at this reputable job, and I'm going to carve my own lane. What was that process like for you? Because it took you a couple of years to really smash the gas.
Yeah, I think it was a thorough process because I am not someone who's just like, sure, that sounds fun, let's do that. Like, I very much am someone who's like, oh, we're doing that? Okay, I'm going to like set myself up, do the research, blah, blah, blah. Like, you were at my wedding. My dad gave this whole toast about how I have always been very independent and I just like make things happen, but I'm methodical about them. And it's really interesting because I never saw myself in that way. And then, you know, you have to hear it from someone else. And then you can sort of see yourself in that way when it's like reflected from someone else. But anyway, when I moved to New York, I knew that I wanted to perform at the level that I had performed in Boston. That was kind of like my first step. Because in Boston, I had like a really incredible theater at Improv Boston. I was on the main stage performing every Saturday night, twice a night, and as well as other stuff. But it wasn't until I moved to New York that I saw, oh, wait, you can like make a living doing comedy? Like, how is that possible? And I decided I wanted to try it. And so I figured I could teach and I could perform and I could coach and all this stuff. But it was a big process. And I'd say fear, of course, was the wall for a long time. You know, well, what if I quit and I fail? You know, I have this really cushy job. Like, what if I can't pay my bills? What if? And so I had to put a plan in place to get beyond the fear for sure.
Right. Who were you afraid of letting down in that moment?
Probably myself, but also like, outside opinions, probably like, what? Like, you thought you could do comedy for a living? Like, what were you thinking? You know?
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't think I knew exactly what it would look like what my job would look like, what my career would look like. I definitely didn't picture what my career is now or what my life is now. I just knew that I wanted to try to make a living off of the things that I was passionate about. And I did it.
Hell yeah, you did. Yeah, for sure. It's so tough to defend ourselves when we don't have an exact, like, well, this is what I'm now going to do.
Yeah,
right?
There's
like,
no map. Yeah.
Yes, right, yeah. Does anybody have a map? And so, shout out to Evan Hansen. This podcast is brought to you by Evan Hansen on Broadway.
The character.
Yeah, just that. Yeah, just
that guy.
Yeah,
just
big
Evan.
investor. He was on Shark Tank. But yeah, it is. There is no map, and it's hard to defend to your friends because you can't even defend it to yourself. It's hard to defend it to your family because you can't even defend it to yourself. Like, no, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Meanwhile, you're like, I don't have a damn clue.
Yeah, and I think, like, as silly as it sounds, a really big part of making it happen was saying it out loud. So just literally saying, like, yes, I am quitting my job on this date to work for myself, you know?
Yes.
And just saying it out loud, because you can say it to yourself all you want or in your journal all you want, but for the moment someone else hears it or you hear it come out of your mouth, like, it just feels more real. And then I think, like, that goes even further. I mean, as you go down the road, it's like, okay, well, can you call yourself a CEO of your company? You know, like, can you say that out loud? How does that feel? How does that sound? You know?
Yes. So, Rachel, how do you now introduce yourself, right? If we were going to meet at a cocktail party or a Zoom party, how would you introduce yourself right now? How are you telling people what you do?
Oh my God, I need to work on this, I think. I think I generally say I'm a professional improviser and corporate trainer, because a bulk of the way that I make my living is by teaching improv to businesses. But I like to say I'm an improv expert or a professional improviser because I also am a performer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it about improv for you? Like, you know, like,
oh, I don't know. Why do I do it so much? Honestly.
if anybody listening right now has done improv. I'd love to know about it. Tell us about it. I just want to shout you out and show some love. I mean, when did you first fall in love with improv, and then when did you say like, I now want to make a life of improv?
Yeah. I mean, those things were very spread out because, I have a very weird background with improv. I started doing it when I was a kid. I was 11. And then in middle school and high school, I was in a sketch and improv team in Stamford, Connecticut, where we got to like write and perform our own sketches, and we did improv. We were coached by adults. It was like the coolest experience ever. I got to perform in New York, all this stuff. But I feel like it wasn't until I moved, and that was like I wrote my college essay about it. Like that was a very big part of my life. But it wasn't until after college when I lived in Boston and I saw my first long form improv show, and it was like this very fucking cool thing. I was like, oh, I'm going to do improv again. Like I'm getting back into it. And then I think I had this moment with myself, like, I'd probably been in Boston for like 5 years performing and whatnot. And I had this moment where I was like, I'm really good at this. Like I kind of saw myself from the outside, and I was like, I've seen other performers at the time also, like as a woman in comedy. I just felt like, oh, I'm good. Like I'm proud of myself, and I feel like I should do more of this. What else can I do with this kind of thing? And I finally started switching. At the time I was working as a web developer, and if people said, hey, what do you do? I'd say I'm a web developer, but I do comedy on the side. Yeah. I flipped that, and I started saying I'm a comedian, but I do web development on the side. And that like language switch was really big for my brain. I don't know.
Yeah. It's huge. Well, I mean, when I first took the leap from working in higher ed to being a full-time speaker, for the first, I would say 2 years after I had left, didn't have a full-time job, had been a speaker it took me 2 years. And I would normally introduce myself as, well, I used to work in higher education, training student leaders. Now I'm a professional speaker.
Yeah.
Because it was just too scary to say, hi, I'm a professional speaker.
Yeah.
Right. And so it took me a long time to be able to do that as well. There's such a switch.
I also think like, in the United States, at least, we wrap our identity in our careers. I don't think that's true in a lot of other countries. In some countries for sure, but that's very much a thing in the United States. It's like you meet someone and you say, oh, what do you do? Right. Yeah. And so like my identity feels so attached to my career that I wasn't comfortable being like, well, I worked in web for this like tech, for this like financial company. Like, but that's not me. That's not what I am. Like, that's not who I am. Right. Like, that's the thing is I'm like, I work for a financial company. By the way, great job. Loved it. Loved the people. But like when I said that out loud, I was like, that doesn't describe who I am at all. And so I just felt, and I think that's actually something really scary about doing your passion as your job as well, as you feel like, well, if I don't do my art anymore, do I cease to exist? Like, who would I be if I don't perform, or, I'm not an artist, and like, do I cease to exist? Who would I be?
Yeah.
Which is scary. I'm sure you've felt that way too.
It's super scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam here says careers equal personal value. That's definitely something that we see here in the States so much. I think that was a great observation. Do you feel like it is different for you as a woman? Are there pressures that are put on you, or what pressures are put on you to maybe not identify that way, or do you go even harder because of that? Or I'm just curious, does that play a role?
I'm not sure. I get asked this a lot, and I feel like this might be a cop-out answer, but I'm like, I've never not been a woman, so I don't know what my experience would be like otherwise. I mean, there's definitely things I recognize that are qualities or habits that women tend to struggle with. For example, downplaying their strengths, stuff like that. And I've been guilty of that many times. I think that like the longer I worked for myself, the more confidence I started to get, right? Like when I was first starting, I think it took me like a year or two to really feel like, oh yeah, okay, I know what's going on. I'd email a client and I'd be like, well, I tend to charge this much, but like, I don't know, what do you think? Right.
Yeah.
But you can't run a business like that. And I don't know a lot of men who run a business like that. So I'm like, this is what I charge. This is what I do. Like, and yeah.
Yeah. But knowing your own worth is so weird. And this is what's interesting for entrepreneurs that are entering spaces that are gig driven, that are service driven. It is tough to know exactly, okay, here's what I charge and here's when I can charge it, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you tell me that you're entering the space and you're like, I got a new idea for a light bulb, you know what other light bulbs cost, right? Like in general, you know the high and the low, but it's so different because we're not selling a product that I can hand you, right?
Yeah.
We're selling an experience, we're selling a mind shift.
And you can't Google, like you can't go on Google and be like, you can go on Google and be like, what do web developers who have had this many years of experience and live in New York City, what's their salary range, right? Like you can Google that. You can't Google like, what does an professional improviser make, right? Like people will be like, that doesn't exist. You're a ghost. So yeah, it's like you have to literally figure it out yourself. And I'll even say like, I'm part of the Applied Improv Network and you are too, right? Are you in the?
Yeah. Speak a little bit about what that is though.
So as I mentioned, I teach a lot of applied improv workshops, which is basically any way that you can apply improv to anything other than stage performance. So you might apply improv to social work practices, or you might apply improv to social justice training. I do it a lot with businesses to teach corporate skills. So I apply improv to the corporate environment. And there's this Applied Improv Network where it's just like a bunch of people who work in applied improv all over the world. It's completely amazing. I think when I first joined, I just thought everyone did business, like corporate improv, and it's like not at all. Like people are doing medical staff using improv, like everyone. Improv is just everywhere. But I'm in this network and I've never used it more, relied on it more than I have in quarantine. And because we're all like, how are we going to manage this online and everything? And what am I talking about? And Applied Improv Network.
You're talking about knowing your worth. And,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
You're good.
But a lot of people ask questions online. How do you do this? How do you do this? But the moment someone says, what do you charge for this? What do you charge for this? Everyone gives advice without saying a number because no one wants to say a number. No one wants to be wrong. No one wants to be like, do I charge too much? Do I charge too little? There's no resource for us. And we're all just like figuring it out, you know?
Yes. Yeah. This is a time where, and I don't want to get into the politics at all, but this is a time where like unions help. Because unions
Can you
are
imagine?
Like, this is what we charge.
I mean, a union for improv would be amazing. I don't know what the frick that would look like, but I mean, similarly, this is kind of another path of improv, but in performance and teaching, like I've been doing improv for over 20 years. Yeah. And technically, if I move to another city, they're going to be like, great, take a level 1 class. And I'm going to be like, I've been teaching improv for 10 years, right?
You don't know me.
You don't. Do you even know who I am? I am Ray Rowe. But like, you know, there's no improv union. I can't be like, hey, here's my credits. Do they apply? I mean, it's crazy how the improv world works. But that's a whole other story.
a whole other story.
Yeah.
I want to come back to this concept. There's two things that I want to touch on. My buddy Billy asked a good question, and I want to touch on that. Is what do you think helps us overcome that fear to be honest with ourselves and take a chance? I don't know if you have a specific time where you did that, or do you remember? Was it somebody? Was it you? Was it, you know, what was it for you, Ray, that helped you kind of get over that hump?
I mean, I'm a planner. So for me, I was like, I need a plan. I have to put something into action. Like I said, you have to say it out loud. So Billy, say it out loud first. I am going to do this, and then okay, how am I going to do this? So for example, I was like, I'm going to quit my job and start my own business. How am I going to do that? Okay, well, currently I live in a studio apartment by myself. It's pretty expensive. First things first, I'm going to find a cheaper apartment. I'm going to move in with a roommate.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I did. And I made a plan to do that. And like email my network of contacts. Here's like what I'm going to offer. Here's what I'm going to do. Like, so I just put a bunch of things in place, some really big, like moving, and some really small, like marketing and website updates, whatever. And whatever I felt like I had to do, I actually gave myself a year to do it. I wasn't like, I have to know by tomorrow. I made the decision in like the fall of 2013 maybe to quit my job. And then in the fall of 2014, I did.
Yeah.
Or that's when I moved and yeah, whatever.
But there's so much power in, like what you said earlier and touched on again there, it's setting that deadline.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm going to do this by this. And those deadlines, they motivate us. I remember when I left a job that I had in New York, I was working in a residence life department, Fordham University. And,
I know it well.
and that's where North Coast used to rehearse in the beginning. But I left that job, even though I had free housing in New York, I left that job because I wasn't happy. And it just wasn't it. And I didn't like the administration. I didn't think they cared about students. And I was like, I got to go. This is no longer aligned with my values. And if I stayed, I would be going against my integrity. And so I told them 6 months ahead of time, like, yo, I'm out this day, whether I had a job or not. I applied for a whole bunch of jobs. I got told I wasn't the right fit a whole bunch of times.
They were idiots.
Yeah. That's the moral of the story. And but for me, as soon as I set that deadline, it was so funny because I had a paycheck coming every week, but all of a sudden I started eating like nothing in my apartment, just like super cheap. Like I was eating like chicken salad and blueberries. I was going through I was eating cereal for meals. I wasn't going out because it was like I was fattening up for the potential winter of not having a job and not knowing what I was going to do for money. And it was this immediate shift. As soon as I submitted that letter, it says, I'm out of here in 6 months. I had this shift of like, what do I have to do to make it happen? But if you never set that deadline, if you never do it, then you're always going to be like, I'm going to get to it, or next week, or this thing came up, or but if I do that, then I can't do this. And so those moments are what keeps us on the hamster wheel a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Is knowing like this is the life that I want to write. This is the story that I want to write. And how the hell can I get to it?
And then knowing that so you have to write the first chapter of your story of your new life, and then know, oh wait, this chapter 2 is totally different, because I don't think no one's plan ever looks the way that they thought it would, when I first quit my job to pursue comedy, I thought I would be coaching a lot of improv, which I did in the beginning, but now my career's it's just shifted a little bit. Now I've found I'm really good at, applied improv and teaching businesses and all this stuff. And so it's just kind of shifts, and then you write a new chapter, and that's really interesting too. It's never done the first time,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you start climbing up a new tree, you have no idea where those branches are going to take you. But that doesn't mean that you need to stay on the trunk because the trunk is safe. You never know where it's going to lead you to.
That was a good metaphor.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. But it's interesting, Rayro. I want to go back to something that's really complicated to do. Especially, I know that this is something that you and I have talked a lot about, and it's how do you know your worth, right? We talked about like we can't. As soon as you ask a group of people that do what you do, they all clam up and they all get self-conscious, right? It's like you just asked somebody how much they weigh, and the way people just like shut down. And so, how have you been able to get over that hump and just be like, you know what? Screw it. This is what I charge. This is what I'm worth. This is my hourly rate or my programmatic rate. How have you done that? Because that's something that I know I have struggled with as well.
I mean, you have to do and then learn from your mistakes, right? I think, like, for example, right off the bat, I probably charged too little, and then I charged too much, and then I was too flexible. For example, in the beginning, like, I was like, oh, I have this client, I'm going to charge them this much, and then I'd get like a new client that was like a big tech company, and people would be like, you got to charge them a lot. I'm like, cool, and I was just like shifting my prices around based on like what I thought I could get versus what my product is and like what I'm providing. And that model does not work, at least not for me. I had to standardize, this is what it is. This is what you get. And this is how much it costs. And it doesn't matter if you're the biggest tech company in the world, I'm still charging that same amount. I do like to provide discounts for like nonprofits and groups that need a discount, for sure. But I'm not like going up and down with like, well, I don't know, you shout out a number, but it just
I feel today.
It took a while to just kind of feel like good about it. Like a really long time. And I still it's still a process. I mean, you and I talk about it all the time. Like it's constantly a process, but, I also feel like once you have enough experience under your belt, you're like, oh, well, I'm getting a lot of yeses at this price. I'm getting a lot of no's at this price. Do I have to change my offering? Do I have to change the structure? There's a lot of things to think about that I never thought I would have to think about. For example, when you're like an improv coach, you charge by the hour, but that doesn't necessarily apply to everything. So I can't necessarily only charge by the hour when I'm doing like a corporate workshop because of all of the work that I do outside of the classroom and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's just learning from your mistakes is my short answer.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And you know how it feels to do a gig that wound up being a ton of work, and you're just like, why did I charge them that? And
oh my God,
that lessons learned, and you get through it, and you're grateful for it, and hopefully you get a sweet testimonial from it. Or maybe they know somebody who knows somebody. But it's also, like you said, I mean, sometimes there are friends in need, or sometimes there are organizations that you're just like, I freaking believe in you, and I know your industry, and y'all don't have this. And so but it doesn't matter. Like the beautiful thing about what you do, and I'm in the same boat, is that we did it for free basically for a long ass time because we loved it. We didn't do it for free because we knew we'd eventually make money. We did it for free because we loved it.
Yeah.
And now we have the privilege of making money from doing something we love.
And something you just said just sparked something in me, which is that, like, you said maybe they know somebody. I actually think that's a very valid reason to do something, actually, because I remember, was it Tina Fey said this maybe in her book, but like basically any improviser talks about saying yes. And you just got to say yes to things. And there have been a lot of times, like going back to, was it Billy's question? Yep. Like, where you have to say yes to something, even if it scares you, and then figure it out along the way. Because that's going to lead to something else later. Like almost everything leads to something else. And it's kind of like a great thing about freelance and also a really scary thing because momentum is so important. Mm-hmm. And in quarantine, I don't know about you, but I'm like, if I lose momentum, like, is my whole business done? Like, it's very scary. But sometimes you just got to say yes and then figure it out. Like I had that lecture I had to do on improv that I called you about because it was like an hour of lecture with no interactivity. And I was like, I can't do this. I don't lecture. I interact. I do exercises that, and I said yes to it because I was like, I should learn how to do this. And I did. And it was great. And it worked well.
Yeah. Now you
So
got another tool in the belt.
now I got another tool in the tool belt.
Oh, over here. Hey, what do we got over here? Huh?
Hey.
What do you need? An Allen wrench? What do you need? What do you need over here?
Hey, what do you
Huh?
need? A pen? What do you need? What do you need? A wine glass? Huh?
You got a better belt than me. I got to step my belt game up. Yeah, Rachel, I love that point for sure, and I think that it is tough to know, but something you said earlier is really important, and this is a place where I see a lot of people that discount themselves. I was once told this story by a gentleman who owned a speaking agency that I was a part of, and he's like, "This is your rate. If that rate seems high to people, remind them of all the work that went into it, right? Like there's this story of the Pablo Picasso was sitting, who knows if it's real or not, it's probably not, but Pablo Picasso was sitting at a bistro in France and sitting at one of these beautiful outdoor things, and somebody came up to him and handed him a napkin and was like, "Hey, Pablo, is there any chance you could just draw me a little something, right? I recognize you. I love your work." And Pablo quick drew something on it and handed it back to the guy. And he said, that'll be $50,000. And the guy was like, "Are you kidding me? It just took you like 45 seconds to draw this thing." How's my French accent? "It just took you like 45 seconds to draw this thing." And Pablo's like, "No, it didn't take me 45 seconds. That's taken me 45 years to be able to draw that in 45 seconds. And we forget about the time that we've spent learning, training, grinding.
Yes.
I just had my first gig that asked me to itemize the hours of my bill. And I was like, okay, I haven't charged hourly maybe ever in the speaking world. But they're
That's
like,
so crazy.
We need to know hourly, like how much time basically like, I was like, okay, well, I'll spend this many time researching, this long doing PowerPoints, this long doing
You're like,
this.
I did 6 years at UCB, paying $400 a class, and then I did this.
I said, let me tell you the story about Pablo Picasso.
That's a really good. I like that story. That's good. Yeah, because it's almost like I feel like when I first started working for myself, it was almost like if we use the painting analogy, it's like I'm just charging them for materials, right? Like, well, the paint costs this much, and the brush costs this much, and the paper, and so I'll just charge you that much, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, wait, what about like the time and the effort and the experience and like just your expertise and all that kind of stuff. And also, this is the boring part, but when you have your own business, sorry to disappoint you guys, but a lot of your time is spent on invoicing, contracts, and proposals.
Yeah.
At least it is for me.
Yeah.
And
Proposals
that
take
time
forever.
that time is valuable,
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the stuff they don't see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray, thanks for talking to me about that. Have you noticed, well, I'd be curious if you've noticed this as a woman in being able to set your price as opposed to your male counterparts, because you have a lot of male friends that do something similar. Have you noticed, have you been treated any differently or has, and if not, I'd still be curious to hear, what is your advice for women for advocating for themselves in that moment when we know that is extreme discrepancy in the world, and where sexism shows up in the business world specifically is not allowing women to advocate for themselves or making them question. It's very insulting. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I feel like I don't have a comparison in my own field of like a man doing what I do and me doing what I do, because again, no one talks about what we charge. I have no
touche.
idea what's happening. But yeah, I think my advice is just like say out loud what you're good at. Like, I am an expert in this. I am good at this. Like, I have 20 years of experience in X, and I have 12 years of experience in this, and when I put them together, like this is all of this experience and knowledge and all the stuff that I'm bringing to the table. Oh, that must be worth something. And if it's not worth something to this client, it will be worth something to the next client,
Yes.
Yeah. And also like building that portfolio, because in the beginning, those testimonials, like you were saying, like I always ask for testimonials and quotes from clients. And like after a while, that list of logos on your website, that starts to impress people. Maybe they're like, well, that's just a woman. Nah, she can't teach improv. Really? Well, look at my client list, you know? But yeah, like it's just, it's hard to say, but it's like, say it out loud and do it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times it's hard to call ourselves experts. Like I find I don't walk into a room and be like, I'm a leadership expert. Like that's a tough word for me to use because for some reason expert, I don't associate expert with still learning. But that's in my own head. Like experts aren't done learning, right? They're still fine tuning and whatnot.
Right.
Just because you put in 10,000 hours doesn't mean that 10,000th and first hour isn't going to be valuable to you. So I think that's where I take myself out of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all have those words that trip us up, right? Like I have my own company, but I'm afraid to say I'm like the CEO, right? And it's like, well, who else is doing shit? You know, like it's not my dog, it's me.
But shout out to Rosie though.
Shout out to Rosie. She's sleeping on the floor over here. But like, yeah, I mean, we all have those words that trip us up. And it's like, I'm not an expert. That's totally understandable. I think it's like I think someone told me or encouraged me to change something on my website to saying I'm an improv expert. And I was like, I am an improv expert. I don't know. That doesn't mean I know everything, like you said. And it doesn't mean that I know more than every other improv professional out there. It just means that I have expertise in what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Rayro, I'm going to do a hard pivot right now because there's something else that you put a lot of time and effort into, and it took you a while to find something that was right for you. And I want to talk to you about love. Now, Rayro, can you tell people about bridesmaiding.com just as a good segue into this conversation?
Sure. I used to run a website. I was the founder and CEO. I founded a website called bridesmaiding.com. I founded it in 2010. I shut it down, I want to say like 2018. So it was around for like 8 years. But basically what it was I was a bridesmaid a billion times. Everyone around me got married, but I was also a comedian, a writer, and a web developer. And so why not kind of write about these experiences on a website? Also, at the time, bridesmaid wasn't really like a known market. It was before the movie Bridesmaiding came out, which I know sounds silly, but that changed a lot of people.
So hipster.
Yeah. So I basically was like, the only resources I could find for bridesmaids online were very cheesy and not very me or my friends. Yeah. So I decided to start a website called bridesmaiding.com, which was a resource for the independent-minded bridesmaid. And it also had fun, true stories and helpful tips and resources and stuff like that.
Yeah. Great videos on there, some really hysterical stuff, but also some valuable posts for sure. And you're right, Rayro. You know, I mean, we've been friends for a number of years, and so I know I haven't known you for all the years that you've been a bridesmaid. But fortunately, you met a badass man, and you all got married, and you finally got to pick your bride's people, and it was beautiful. But Rayro, as you mentioned, I mean, you're 41. You got married last year. 2 years ago?
7 months ago.
7 months ago, exactly.
Same your anniversary. I got married on your anniversary.
Same. That's right. Anniversary buddies. Oh my God, what? If you should go to Rayro's. Is it on your YouTube page or your Facebook page? Your whole ceremony was
a musical.
A musical.
It's definitely on my website. Yeah,
for sure. That's worth your time. But Rayro, I'd be curious to hear your journey to finding love, was up and down. And what enabled you to stay hopeful? What enabled you, if you did, or is it like as soon as you gave up on hope, or Sam was like, "Hey, how you doing?"
You know what? It's funny. You call it a hard pivot, but I'm going to connect what we were just talking to love.
Connection Island.
I'm going to do your job for you. I totally lost hope, I'm sure, because any single woman in her 30s in New York City, I'm going to change that to single straight woman in her 30s in New York City, is very, very hard. It is very hard. And I really, really feel for those women. There's so many women in their 30s and 40s who are single and straight in New York City, and the numbers are not in their favor. And it is tough. It is tough. I think that the reason I found love is because I started to follow my passion, my career. So I basically, like, I mean, you can trace it back, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like do stuff for me. And I am going to, the way that I met Sam was it started with like, I'm going to go to Vancouver, the Vancouver Improv Festival, and perform with North Coast. And I'm just going to go. And I had just broken up with someone. I'm like, I'm going to go by myself. I'm going to stay for like a week and travel by myself. And while I was there, I met a bunch of people from Portland, Oregon. And they were like, you should come to Portland. So next year I went to Portland. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go teach and perform in Portland. And I went back to Portland the next year by myself. And I set up like an artist residency for myself where I taught and performed. And when I went, I met my now husband, Sam. But I feel like it was because I was following the things that I love and that I enjoy. It's crazy that I met my husband all the way on the other side of the country. We both lived in New York, but we're both in Portland at the time. And it was just, it was because I was doing what I wanted to do for my career and my life. And I don't know. I think that there's something to that, right? Yeah. I didn't put everything on pause and say like, I'll tell you what didn't work, finding love, was like what I was doing sometimes because my friends told me to, which was like, just give this, what, you said you don't like that guy, but just go out with him again. Because like, you never know, maybe you'll grow to like him. And I was like, okay. And that doesn't work, when you know. And I feel like I was like, well, this guy's kind of an asshole, but you know what? He's kind of, I was just making so many mistakes because I had lost hope. And it was when I really followed what I love and who I am that I met someone.
Yeah. Yeah, Ray, I'm going to connect the two topics together because I'm going to do my job for me. And dare we say, in that whole process, you learned your worth. Right, and you knew your worth, and your worth enabled you to be picky, right? Like you stuck by it, like, no, this isn't right. No, this isn't good enough, right? It's good, but it's not great, or it's fine, but it's not what I want. And knowing your worth in those moments, and knowing your worth in those moments was really beautiful and led you into an incredible relationship.
Yeah, and I think like. It's hard to toot your own horn, but you were tooting it. So like if I had just wanted to be in a relationship or in a marriage or whatever, like I could have been in a couple of those, Yeah. But I was like, this isn't really right. This isn't what I want. And I knew I'm a catch. Like I'm going to wait. I want my person or I don't need a person. Like I'm great on my own, And to be, kind of circling back, just like on a conversation about relationships, one thing that I like to talk about is a lot of people when I was single, a lot of people who were in relationships would say, you're going to meet someone. You're too great not to meet someone. That person's just around the corner. And what I had to come to terms with was saying, you know what? I might not meet that person. And that has to be okay too. Like I can be okay on my own also. And that's good. I think that was a healthier outlook for myself than like, well, he's out there somewhere, And like, because it's hard, if you want to be in a relationship, being single is hard. But like knowing your worth, knowing like, okay, you know what? I can be single and I can be happy and independent, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
That is 100% more valuable than just hang on,
Everything happens for a reason.
I can't.
I can't do it. And I will not.
I won't, I can't, and I won't.
I shan't. Yeah. Yeah, Ray, I love that. And I think that the process of finding what you want, I mean, I chose a different path, right? Like I went ahead and got married to what I later found out was just good, but wasn't great. And no disrespect to that previous partner of mine at all. I mean, that was all me. That was in my head as far as what was going on there, what I thought I should be doing. And I have always admired how well you have known yourself. It is truly, it makes being your friend very easy because you know what you're getting, and it's all heart, so much passion, but it's just like it's a conviction for the person that you are, that just, I don't know, it just there's instant rapport building and respect when you hang out with somebody like that. And so shout out to you, Rayro. And I'm so glad that we're able to talk a little bit about that topic as well, because I think so many people are out here with the binoculars, just looking for it, but being okay, realizing that you also need to be okay if it doesn't happen, and that you will be okay. That sounds easy, but I also know that took a little time for you to do.
It took a long time for sure. And thank you for all those nice things you just said. I feel the same way about you. I think I was saying earlier that there's so much like progressive movement right now in our country and in our world. And I feel like the same thing applies to relationships. Like there's not one relationship or one like way of love that like fits everyone. Like relationships aren't for everyone. Marriage isn't for everyone, children are certainly not for everyone. And I think now with like non-monogamy and like polyamory, and I think like people are becoming more open to the fact that like there isn't one path for everybody. Like we don't have to do the path that like our parents took. It's like what works for you. And I think again, just like career, that's a really hard thing to come to terms with for yourself, of like, is it okay? Like I don't want to, like someone might be like, I don't want to get married. Is that okay? Like, yes, it is. Like you do whatever your path is, like, and people can find love in different ways. And
Yeah, for sure. It's so hard to write our own story when we see other examples of stories that seemingly are working. But it is so important to remember that we are, in fact, the ones who have the hands on the pen that is writing the story of our life. And Rayro, I'm so glad that you touched on that. And I'm super pumped that you came on the show. Rayro, it was so fun hanging out with you.
I love diners.
Oh, my God.
No, this was so fun. I'm so glad that you had me. Thank you so much. And it's almost our 10-year friendiversary, so we'll have to do something special.
I can't wait. I'm in here for that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have Rayro stick out around and answer some questions from you. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a comment and a review. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are about it. If you want to see the Q&A with Rachel Rosenthal, make sure you go to my YouTube page. Just search my name on YouTube; it'll pop up, and make sure you check out the Q&A with Rayro. Thanks so much for listening. Rayro, I appreciate you, homie.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for coming. I'm wondering if anybody has questions that's still tuning in. We'll let people come in. Any questions for Rachel on? It could be anything. It could be on love. It could be on bagels. It could be on improv and ways to apply improv to some of the work that you're doing, because there's so many cool ways that we do that. Or it could be on just how do you make a pivot and whatnot. So I love it. I believe, I don't know who it was up here, but I want to bring this
I think your
question
dad
in.
just asked a question.
Okay,
Maybe.
cool.
Oh,
Let's get this one first. Stacy asked this earlier, Rayro. Rachel, were you inspired by your dad starting his own consulting business? Is that was that in your blood?
it is in my blood. Yeah, that's true. My dad was freelance, I guess, freelance before anyone, way before. My dad was ahead of his time. He's also a programmer in his 70s. He was like working in computers before anyone. You know what? To be honest, I hadn't really thought about that, if I'm being totally honest. But that I probably was. Both my parents worked for themselves, like when I was growing up, and they both lived and worked from our home, and they each had an office like at either end of the house. Like my mom would kind of like, she was a social worker, she would see patients like in the porch, and my dad was a programmer, and he would like have his business in the other end of the place. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny the things we don't recognize the seed that may have been planted, but we don't even know necessarily when it was planted because it was planted so long ago. And
Yeah.
like, I wonder if that is a connection.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. What my dad was talking about is that I forgot to do the segment in the middle of the show called
Joro.
yeah. So thank you, Dad. I'm sorry that I forgot to do that. Rayro, I don't know if did you come up with an interesting thing that people don't normally know about you that they
Yeah.
are grateful they need to know?
This is super important to know. No, it's not. One thing that you don't know about me, because I didn't even know it about myself,
Oh shoot.
is that my favorite genre of like movies and film, movies and television is time cops.
Time pops?
Time cops. Like,
Okay.
I love time travel movies and crime. And when you combine them, I just love a time traveling crime show. For example, the movie Frequency from 1990 something, right up my alley. I love
Yeah.
time cops.
What movie did you watch recently that enabled you to make that connection?
My
show?
husband pointed it out to me. Like, I was like, I think I made him watch Frequency. And he was like, "You love time cop stuff." And I'm like, "I do love time cop stuff." Because there's also this show on Netflix called Travelers that I love. And I don't know, I have yet to meet someone else who's watched it. And it's like my favorite show. But it's like time traveling crime solvers.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tina asked a cool question. I don't know if I've already seen any time cop shows. I'm gonna have to figure out if
I can make some
I haven't
recommendations.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I definitely have not seen Frequency, but it sounds like I need to go back and do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tina asked a question. How have you and Sam been coping with our performance during quarantine?
Well, Sam is my husband, for anyone who doesn't know. It's really hard. Like I was saying earlier, I'm sure a lot of people feel this way. Like, you feel like without your art form, maybe you're not yourself, or you lose your identity, which is like that's always been something I've struggled with. Yeah, I really, really miss performing. But I will say one of the biggest takeaways for me with not performing in quarantine is that I have become so stupid. My brain is mush. And I realize how active improv keeps my brain.
Yeah.
I've been in an apartment. I'm now at my parents' for a couple days, but like I'd been in a tiny apartment for over 3 months, and I have lost my whole vocabulary. I say to my husband, I'm like, "What's the thing? What's the thing with the thing?" And he has to fill all the words in. I mean, I really have become an idiot. So I truly appreciate the way that improv has activated my brain, and I really just miss like touching people. Like, I'm a very touchy-feely person and a performer, and oh man, it's been hard, but this helps. This is nice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, North Coast has started doing our Instagram lives, which was fun, is fun, and we're starting to do our Saturday shows every Saturday at 8 o'clock on Facebook Live on the North Coast Facebook page. That's North Coast NYC. But that has been fun, but it's still
It's not the same.
it's just different. Yeah, because we're not hearing the laughter. I mean, I think what all performers want to do is be able to move somebody, whatever that form is, and you just don't feel people move when you're doing things virtually.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah,
laughter or silence. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's like this feeling you get when you can almost like manipulate the audience any way you want. Like you're like, oh, I'm like locked in with them, and yeah, you just don't get that online. And I'm also a very physical performer, as are you. And there's only so much you can do in this box, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tina, I appreciate that question. Valerie over here.
Valerie's my sister-in-law. She's going to watch Travelers. Yes. Do it. No regrets. You're going to love it.
Never say you didn't make an impact today. There you go. Speaking of Travelers, I have a question for you because a fun thing that I didn't get to in the main show, but I think is really cool about you is that you have been a solo traveler a number of times. Can you tell the people where are some places that you have traveled to on your own, and also, I guess why, like in a cool way, why?
I mean, I discovered pretty early on that I loved traveling. The first place I traveled on my own was Vietnam. Or, well, actually, I'll say Israel, because I went to Israel not knowing a soul in college. I went for 6 months. And that was like really challenging and awesome. But yeah, I traveled to Israel by myself for a semester. And then I've traveled to Vietnam. I was with a friend, but we split up for a while. And so I was alone there. And once I did that little mini trip by myself, I was like, oh, I can do this. And then I went to Costa Rica by myself. I went to Spain. And what I love about it is that you actually meet way more people when you're by yourself. You just like meet so many people. And I'm a very friendly person. And I'm also a very independent person. So what's awesome about traveling alone is, you know, you meet people and they're new friends, but if they're ever like doing something and you're like, I don't want to, you're just like, I'm doing my own thing, bye. Whereas like if you're traveling with a friend, you can't do that to them necessarily.
That's like rude or something.
So I really love the freedom that brings, where it's like, even if it's like, you know what, I need a day to not travel today. Like I'm going to just like sit in a coffee shop or watch TV while I'm in Vietnam because I need a day. Like you can do that when you're by yourself.
There's no one to shame you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I'm wondering if any of you all listening, have you ever traveled solo anywhere? Let me know in the chat, because I'd be curious. It was right after North Coast got to headline the Amsterdam Improv Festival, and on the back end of it, after I flew from Amsterdam to Iceland alone, and did 4 days in Iceland, and I landed in Reykjavik, or technically like Keflavik, and then drove 4 hours north to the north shore of Iceland, and I stayed up there in a small home, in a family's home. It was literally a bedroom in their house.
That's so cool.
Airbnb. They cooked me cod one night. I really appreciated it.
Sure.
And just told me stories. And while I was there, I realized, you know, I do a lot of traveling alone as a speaker, but it's different. This was the first time I ever traveled internationally alone. Like I did a couple days in Arizona by myself. I did the Grand Canyon by myself, and like I did some of that kind of stuff, and that was really awesome. But like international solo traveling it was a rush. And there were also times where it was super scary. Like I was driving because I landed a little late and had a 4-hour drive up to this random house. And I was driving through a snowstorm, and I was like, yo, if anything happens to me, like I don't know what happens, right? Like I don't know the emergency number in Iceland to call. I don't even know if my cell phone would work.
Yeah.
And I don't there's that rush of like, well, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm not gonna go back. It's just really cool. There's a lot of power in it, and I admire that about you, Rego.
And I do think, I mean, obviously foreign country is very different, but I also love being a traveler in my own country. And I think a really big difference, because you travel so much for work, is work travel versus just pleasure travel. And I feel like Unfortunately, since I started working for myself, I haven't been traveling as much just for me. I only travel because I have a gig, and it's totally different. Like if you just go somewhere to be present and like tune out and tune out of your life and tune into a new life, it's like so different. And I need to try to figure out a way to balance bringing that in again.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree, Rayro. I mean, at least you got that man of yours to get a passport. Let's take some baby steps out here.
I mean, I'm trying.
Come on now. Come on
We
now.
did go to Mexico on our honeymoon.
Oh, bonjour.
Bonjour.
So Scott has never went on a real vacation till he was married. I love it, Scott. I hope you get to do some cool traveling. Valerie out here, admiring solo travelers. Valerie, I cannot encourage it enough. Talk to Ray Rowe. She'll make you do it.
Yeah.
But Jordan went to a 3-month solo down to Brazil when you were 18, especially at the age of 18.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's
but
amazing.
That's the other thing is when you're younger, you have no fear because you're like, whatever, right? Like I sometimes wish I did more when I was younger, you know? That's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. For sure. But Jordan, where did you go in Brazil, buddy? I'd be curious. Did you bounce all around, or I've been to Sao Paulo. I got to be there for a week, which is really cool. But again, it was a work trip. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear. Ray Rowe,
awesome.
where would you travel if I said, hey, here's a plane ticket, right on it, where you want to go? Where are some places that you've been itching to get to, whether solo or with Sam?
Yeah, so many places. I've never been to Italy. I've been like all over Asia, but not a lot of Europe, strangely. So I really want to go to Italy. And I really want to go, which I know you went to, and it looks amazing in the food. Oh my God. And I really want to go to Greece. Those are like top 2 right now.
Yeah.
And then I really liked Central America. Like Costa Rica was amazing, and I'd love to go back. Like I'd love to go to like Guatemala. I'd love to go to South America. I've never been to Brazil.
Yeah.
I
Costa
speak
Rica,
a little bit of Portuguese, so
Obrigado.
Obrigado.
That means thank you for everybody tuning in. That's the only word I know in Portuguese. So there's worse.
Well, I know I worked with like a lot of Brazilian folks when I worked at a restaurant, so a lot of my Portuguese is food related. Like, watch out for the hot plate. I'm behind you. Like we're like waiter terms.
Behind. I love it.
Yeah, atrás você. Yeah.
Perfect. Jordan, you said you were in
Uberlandia.
First off, that sounds like something that Ray Rowe would talk about in one of her time travel cop movies. So that
Uberlandia.
sounds super made up. But I am going to Google where that is because I would love to see it. You said Brasilia was the biggest city that you've entered into, though. Cool, man. That's awesome. I'd love to hear more about that trip. Next time I'm in Ontario, Jordan, I'm going to hear more about that, my bearded brethren. Ray Rowe, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Rachel, thank you. I just appreciate you, homie. It's always special talking to you, and if we can do it formally like this, whatever it takes.
I appreciate you so much and admire you and your work, and this was so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you, Ray Rowe. You be well.
You too.
Indeed. My friends, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Diner Talks with James. Shout out to my guest, Rachel Rosenthal, for just being a boss and for out here paving the way as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, apparently. I'm here for that. And also just as a badass solo traveler who waited to find love because she deserved it. It was so special getting to talk with my friend Rachel. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like it, make sure that you smash that like button. Smash something in the comments. Tell us a little bit about what stuck out with you. And make sure that you reach out to Rachel on various spots online. She's Ray Rowe Show pretty much anywhere you look on the internet. So definitely make sure you catch her everywhere. My friends, thanks for tuning into another episode of Diner Talks with James. I've been James. You've been great. Can't wait to talk to you next week where we got more stories, more thoughts, and more questions. Take care, y'all. Be well.